Hi, and welcome to the Agile Project Manager Practitioner module. In this session, we're going to have a little look at structures, the roles within Agile, and the unique thing about the Agile approach, which is the focus on team performance. But first of all, let's go back to some basics. Every project has basically the same dynamic. So we have the business driving the requirement for the project and funding it. We've got the delivery team, which is the project team that's going to go and create things. They could be part of the resource chain, they could be building things, they could be software developers, particularly in the case of Agile. They're going to do the work to create what we call the new capability. And finally, we've got users. Those are the people that are going to use the capability. Now, these three dynamics have been in place ever since the pharaohs decided to build some pointy things in the middle of a desert. You're going to have people who pay for it, people who build it, and people who are going to use it. That's the three dynamics. So what Agile is trying to do is bring these much closer. Yep, so there's a much more dynamic relationship, but every project method in the world has these three dynamics. Let's have a little think about the layers and hierarchy in any project management. So we'll always have a leader, or we should. There should be somebody seeing where the vision of the project, how it fits into the big picture of the organization. We often call them the sponsors in other methods, but we have different names for them in Agile. We then have the management layer, which is really where the project manager sits and the team leaders and all that kind of stuff. These are the people who are going to make build the capability and make it ready for implementation. And they have the oversight. So if you look at other methods like Prince2, it's all about project management. In Agile, we talk about delivery a lot more. And even though this course is about Agile project management, you'll see in the following slides that really the concept of delivery and the interaction with the delivery team and the development guys is so much tighter and dynamic and focused. It's definitely a key characteristic when we're talking about Agile. Okay, well, here's the overview of the Agile hierarchy structure. You can see that it's really nicely coloured, and when you get into your course, you're going to cover this in a lot more detail to work out what each role does. But the colouring really helps us understand how they fit together. You can see you've got in orange, we've got the business representative. So the sponsor, that's the person that's holding the purse strings, signing everything off and makes major decisions. We've got the business visionary. Now there's the person that knows what the end game looks like. You might have heard the term outcomes, which is the change state when things have been implemented. The business visionaries owning those change states. All right, they're looking at this going, is that the thing the development team going to deliver, going to enable me to deliver that change state and deliver those benefits are absolutely critical to the process. And then as we drop into the other one, the other oranges there, the business advisor, they provide the interface to some of the supporting functions around the project. These could be ICT, they could be the building maintenance people, if you're working on building systems. They could be anybody. They could also be talking to people like the business architects. How's this thing going to work? How's this going to fit into the bigger picture? If you're in a council, how does this thing fit into all the other process like adult social care or whatever it happens to be? If you're working in a high digital organization with lots of transactions, how this app is going to fit into it. So that's the business advisor there, helping to inform the development team of the limitations or the opportunities that are there for them. And then we've got the business ambassador. So that's the person that represents the solutions development team when they go and have meetings and talk about the user stories and say, what is it you really want to do with this, rather than give me a big list of things that are complicated. So those are your orange roles. Your green roles are basically your techies, aren't they? Yeah, you might have a technical advisor that's talking to the wider business as well, but obviously they'd be able to translate this into a coherent discussion. But they may be working really closely with a business advisor, trying to work out what's technically feasible. Okay, Then at the top, we've got the technical coordinator interfacing with a project manager. They're equally important because they're talking to all the technical people around the project. Yeah, can we do this? Where are we going to put this thing? How is it going to fit in? What's the launch date? All that kind of stuff. And then on the bridgehead between the two, we've got the business analyst. The business analyst understands the business perspective, but they've got tints of green as well because they'll have a more technical understanding. Could mainly be about process. Yeah, how does the process work? How does the technology fit together? Absolutely key person in this. And then we've got the blue. The blue, there's two core managers in this. You remember the second tier. There's the team manager that's in charge of all the development, and there's the project manager, which is keeping this whole thing together, trying to spin all the plates and keep the interfaces working. So that's how Agile takes those layers and builds them together. Quite a nice model when you look at it. As I say, you'll see a lot more of this in your course. Let's just think about the role of the project manager, as this is Agile Project Management. So they've got 5 key interfaces. They've got the interface with the business sponsor because they need to keep him or her really well informed of what's going on, because the buck stops with them on this. If this their money, they need it spent properly, and they're looking after the business's interests. We've got the technical coordinator, so they should be the kind of looking after all those issues for the project manager, going off and talking to the technical areas that may need to host or help support this project. They may be going off and talking to the help desk, whoever it happens to be, to make sure those things are in place for when you're ready to go live, and that the ideas coming out of the development team can hang together. Business analyst understands the process, understands the way the business works. It's their job to make sure that whatever's designed doesn't collide and break other things that are out there. And then we mentioned before in the other slide, the business visionary. Business visionary is basically owning the outcomes. This is how it's going to work. This is how it's going to be great. They're going to actually help sell it to the business, how this change is going to help performance and help the individuals. And the team leader, looking after all the development work, making sure that the team can cope, making sure that the momentum's there, that the team's working optimally, they're not getting too big a backlog and just staying on the case. So the project manager's got those 5 key contacts that he or she's got to keep on board. I mentioned earlier that one of the things I love about Agile is, unlike Prince2 and PMI and all those other project methods out there, they've really thought about how the team functions. Because if we look at why projects go wrong, yeah, poor sponsorship's a good one, bad project management's another. However, a team that is not driven and focused at an end game and doesn't think about how it communicates with each other is not going to be optimized. And the whole Agile approach is about optimizing what's going on in the delivery team rather than worrying about the governance layers above it. Now, for anybody listening to this, will probably have been heavily involved in working from home during COVID and the pandemic. And in fact, actually, you're probably taking some of this for granted now. But when the book was written, nobody really was thinking about everybody being working from home for a year or so. So things that we probably do now from face to face, we're probably not doing much more of that anymore. So what we're used to doing video conferencing, Teams and Zoom has revolutionized everything. Chat facilities, emails really good, collaborative workspaces, the Dropboxes and all that kind of ideas management type of stuff. And there's still also an important role for documents, formalizing things. It's all very well doing things on the fly, but some people just need to know, what is it you want? So these things all help to make the team efficient, right? It needs to be dynamic. We talked about in Agile, it's not particularly in this course, about stand-up meetings and all that sort of stuff. It's all about creating fun and energy in the team, all right? And just getting this job done. So that's team communications, and a real core aspect of it. So I hope you found this useful. It's now time for you to think about getting on with the module. Maybe you need to have a cup of coffee after listening to me for nearly 10 minutes, but enjoy the module, take it all in, take your time, and do the tests at the end, and hopefully you do okay.